Hello and welcome back to my channel, Boozy Bookish Thoughts. I'm Justine, or Jay if you prefer, and welcome to my new video. So today we are drinking the Sand Valley Carmenere. Carmenere. We have not too much in the glass. Let's pour some more. So if you checked out my videos last week, you would know that I was feeling ill and wasn't drinking back then. So as I said back then, we try to promote a healthy relationship with alcohol. And we don't want to say that if you're feeling ill or don't feel like drinking, you have to drink. But when you do feel like drinking, cheers. Don't worry, it's not the end of the video yet. So, um, today we're going to be talking about my 22 books for 2022. So normally this is something you'd likely see during the start of the year, but obviously I didn't have a channel back then. And at this point in time, I wanted to talk a little bit about the books on my 2022 book list that I have read, the books that I want to prioritize for the end of the year, and the books that are remaining that I may just have to let go. So, before anything else, I do want to say that the day that this is going up, August 9, is World's Indigenous Peoples Day. So, shout out to all of the people who are part of indigenous groups. I don't know about in other countries, but here in the Philippines, a lot of indigenous groups are in have a long and historic struggle for self-determination and for the protection of their ancestral domains, in particular from extractive industries. So yes, shout out to all indigenous groups, to all indigenous peoples. I hope that you stay strong, and I know that I'm with you in this fight for your rights. And as connected to booktube, that we want to hear your stories. We want to hear stories from your perspective about your history, about your culture. And so connected to that, we will go to one of the books on my 22 books of 2022, which is in fact by an indigenous author, and that is Angeline Bowley's Firekeeper's Daughter. I have notes here. This is my little journal, and that's mine. So Angeline Bowley's Firekeeper's Daughter is in fact sort of like a coming of age story about a biracial unenrolled. I'm not sure what unenrolled means. I think it means she's not part of like the official tribal registry. I'm not sure. I assume this is explained in the book. But these are the kind of issues that I want to know about. So it's about a biracial unenrolled teenager who kind of feels like an outcast wherever she goes, both in her community, both in her like hometown and in the local tribal community. And then she has to put her plans on hold to take care of her mom. But then she gets involved in like a criminal investigation of a murder during which she needs to go undercover. I'm not sure where she goes undercover in or with whom, but she goes undercover, and then things get a bit dicey when more deaths and more intrigue piles up. And so everything comes to a breaking point. So this is by an indigenous author, and it is about an indigenous character. So I was originally a little worried about including this in my priority list for the remainder of 2022 because it's really long. It's close to 500 pages. So I was a little worried about that. But then I was looking at the books I had originally decided to prioritize, and I realized while there was some diversity, it was all Black authors, and none of it. And I even left off a book about my own country, from my own country. So I was like, no, we need to reprioritize this. So I switched things around, and I'm including Firekeeper's Daughter in my list of priorities for the rest of 2022. Speaking of the book that is from my country, or well, it's not from my country. I think the author is Filipino American. And it is about a Filipino American too. But so the author is Brian Rebai, and the title of the book is The Patron Saints of Nothing. So I've seen this floating around for some time, and I was really intrigued by it because it focuses on a lot of current events in the Philippines. So I don't know if you know, but back in 2016, an overwhelming majority of Filipinos elected Rodrigo Duterte into the office of the president on a very, very strict law and order platform. So one of his major campaign promises was that he would solve crime in the country um, by solving the drug problem. And he would do this, or he promised to do this during his campaign by killing all the drug peddlers, drug users, and other criminals. So this was literally his campaign promise to kill people. And within like the first 6 months to a year of his presidency, thousands died. Literally thousands were killed. Most of these were during drug operations. Others were by vigilantes, so we don't know who killed them. But they these were all considered deaths during the so-called war on drugs. So this is current events. This is really happening. This is happening in the country. And the story, Patron Saints of Nothing, is about this part is the part that's fiction. So the part that's fiction is the Patron Saints of Nothing is about a Filipino American teenager who is in his senior year of high school in the US, who is like living his carefree life until he learns that his Filipino cousin back here in the Philippines is killed as part of this drug war, or war on drugs as it's officially known. So he comes to the Philippines and he starts investigating the death and the events surrounding the death of his cousin. And has to reckon with a lot of things, a lot of realities that he didn't have to confront previously. And it's sort of a coming of age story, and sort of, I guess, a commentary on the current events of the Philippines. So honestly, I've owned this book for nearly a year, honestly, at this point. I think I got it during Prime Day, or during no, not Prime Day, during um Cyber Monday, something like that, on Amazon last year. And I have been putting off reading it because I don't know how triggering it's going to be. I deal with a lot of current events for my job, and normally I like to take a break from it for my reading, for my hobbies, because my work can be pretty intense, and so I like to separate my hobbies. But at the same time, I think it's really important to be reading books that reflect the current realities and talk about current issues um that that we are confronting, and asks important questions, so normally I prefer to ask these important questions through fantasy, but sometimes contemporary fiction tackles things that fantasy just can't. I do want to read this, like I really do want to read this, but I am honestly scared. Like literally, I am worried it will affect my mental health. Um, so I am putting this on my priority list. I do hope I get brave enough to read this sometime during this year. Let's see. I want to be brave enough. I have consulted some of my friends who have read it, and they said it's not that much worse than reading like an investigative journalist report, which obviously I have read, not just for in part because of my job, and in part because am a bit of a news junkie. So if it's not that bad, if it's only as bad as the investigative reports, then I should be able to do it. But like I said, I'm scared, and like I said, I honestly prefer to keep my reading to be more escapist. But yeah, I'm still putting it on my list of priorities for the rest of 2022. So moving on from those two, those are really the only two new books that I'm putting on my list, because the other three that are on my priority list, I both had mentioned on a previous video. That video was the mid-year freakout tag. I am so angry at this tripod. I don't know what to do about it. I said I was going to buy a new one, but it didn't go out this weekend. And also because when it tilts up, it looks like I'm not wearing anything, but I am. Okay. So the three books that I mentioned in that video that I had planned to read were Battleground by Jim Butcher, which if you read my, or not read, if you watched my August TBR, you will have seen is on my TBR for this month. It is the most recent installment of the Dresden Files series. And as I said back then, I can't really explain what it's about without spoiling like 10 books in the series. So suffice it to say, it's the big battle that we've been building up for like 10 books. And I am super hyped about it, and I want to get through it and see which characters survive. Literally, I am bracing myself for death in this. Um, but yeah, I hope to read this within the month. I only have to get through two books before I get to this book, so hopefully. The other books that I'm planning to read are Terry Pratchett's The Color of Magic. So this is the first in the Discworld series. I realized I was neglecting my wine. I was talking about such heavy topics. I was like, we need wine for this. But so this is the first in the Discworld series, and it's about a tourist two flower and their guide, a wizard called Rincewind. And I just heard such wonderful things about this series, and I want to get into it. I don't know why I never got into it before, but I read a meme recently that said that like it's never too late to abandon a certain wizarding world for the Discworld series, and I would love to do that. So honestly, I pretty much abandoned that franchise already, but I would love to be able to replace it with a new one. And so hopefully the Discworld will be that. And I do love Good Omens, which is also by Terry Pratchett. But that's the only work of his I have read, so I want to read more. So I am prioritizing this for the end of the year, maybe as early as September, depending on how the rest of my reading goes. The other book that I want to prioritize for this year, I have also already talked about, and that is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. So this book is his memoir, and it is his memoir about growing up in apartheid South Africa. So this is during a time where it was literally a crime to be biracial, which he is. So this is about his childhood and about his journey to the Daily Show and all that. So yeah, I'm super excited to read about this. I want to hear. I find him very funny as a comedian, so I expect him to be equally funny as a writer. Yeah, and I think I want to read more memoirs. I really enjoyed the one memoir that I read this year, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So I think I need to read more nonfiction, and I think memoirs are the way to go. And I think reading the memoir of a comedian is like baby steps into that. So these are the five books that I'm prioritizing for the rest of the year, more or less. That's one book per month. But obviously, because of my unfinished list, I won't be reading it one book per month. But basically, those are the five. So that's Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boolley, um, Patron Saints of Nothing by Ryan Rebai, Battleground by Jim Butcher, The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett, and Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. With those 5, I would have read 11 books. So currently, I have already read 6 books on my 2022 list. So those 6 are, hang on. So those 6 are Jennifer Cook O'Toole's Autism in Heels, Cixin Liu's The Three Body Problem, and Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. So all 3 of these were part of the unfinished list. And then after that was Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, Lucy Foley's The Hunting Party, and The Lost Apothecary by Penner. So those are the first 6 books I read in more or less the first half of the year. And then with the 5 I'm prioritizing, I would have read 11 books in total. Yeah, that's half of 2022. So I will call myself successful if I'm able to get those. The remaining books that I have on the list that I hope to get to but will no longer be prioritizing are Pullman's The Golden Compass, Fisher's Dreaming Down the Bones, Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, Holesso's Amora, Monroe's What If, Hobbes' Assassin's Apprentice, Nix's The Left-Handed Booksellers of London, Akira's Insatiable, Butler's Bloodchild, Fitzsimmons' Constance, and Cordova's The Inheritance of Orchidea Divina. So that's it for my 22 books of 2022 video, kind of wrap, catch up / checkpoint, accountability checkpoint. Let me know which of these, did I make the wrong choices with my priority list? Let me know down below. Were one of the other books I mentioned better or more significant? But I tried to be purposeful with my choices. As I said, I was trying to be diverse, but also considerate of my own interest and mental health and the realities of picking up books. So let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz. And yeah, do you have a book list for 2022? Will you be making one for 2023? Let me know down below. Cheers.